Hi, I'm Harvey Lehner. I'm member number 7 of the Southern California Railroad Museum. This car we're sitting in is called a PE Blimp. It's number 418. And it used to operate up on the Southern Pacific Red Electric lines in the East Bay in the Bay Area, up in San Francisco Bay Area. It came to Los Angeles at the beginning of the war. The Southern Pacific Red Electrics in the Bay Area were discontinued just as the war was breaking out, just before it. And the cars were sitting and getting ready for scrap, and the U.S. Maritime Commission stepped in and said that they were going to save these cars for use on a California shipyard route in Southern California, which operated over the Pacific Electric tracks. The cars were brought down to, so they were saved from the scrap line, and the cars were brought down to Southern California and were prepared for service on the California Shipyard Railway. These cars joined the Pacific Electric fleet. They operated over the Pacific Electric line. And one of the first things the PE realized is that they were slower than the Pacific Electric cars. And as a result of that, I think the speeds that they operated at was something like 38 miles an hour. And they were holding up traffic on the 4-track main line, the Southern District 4-track main line, holding up traffic on the Long Beach line, the San Pedro line, all the Pacific Electric Southern District lines. So the cars had to be modified to get their speeds increased, and I think they got them up somewhere in the mid-40 mile an hour range, and that helped solve the problem. Now on the Pacific Electric, the red cars ran on 600 volts DC, and up in Northern California these cars were 1200 volt DC cars. So they had to be modified to operate properly on the Pacific Electric 600 volt voltage. Another thing that had to be done is that the radius of the couplers had to be extended, because these cars could not turn around the curves, go around the curves. For example, the curve at the bottom of the 6th and Main viaduct was the tightest on the Pacific Electric, and the blimps would not be able to make that curve, so they had to extend the coupler length so that the cars could operate around that curve. Well, the war ended on September 2nd, 1945, and a few days later the Cal shipyard was shut down. The need for it had ended, and so the cars became available. And the Pacific Electric, having an aging fleet, acquired a good part of these, a good portion of the U.S. Maritime Commission cars that had come to Southern California for that service. So the PE took them under their wing. They bought them from the Maritime Commission and did a rebuilding and modernization of them, and they went from the number series 4500, I think they were, for the Maritime Commission, and became the 400 series. And that's how they finished their career on the Pacific Electric. And then when Pacific Electric was taken over by Metropolitan Coach Lines, they kept their numbers, but this car finished its service as car number 1528 under the Los Angeles Metropolitan Transit Authority. In 1947, the 4600s went through the torn shops for the modernization, as they called it. Now, this one came out without much fanfare or any drama on the Santa Fe. By the time this car came out, the Santa Fe pretty well understood our artifacts, and they figured out how to handle them in their trains. One of the nice aspects of riding as a caretaker on a car coming out to the museum is that we were able to ride in a freight train, and the freight crews were always very friendly, and we usually got a cab ride on the Santa Fe Diesel on the San Jacinto branch. It was a lot of fun. And there was just sort of a certain series of sounds and movements that were very typical of these cars and quite unique to them, as a matter of fact.